Hey there, my friend. This is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, and I want to welcome you back to another episode here on the Fit Father Project podcast. Today, we're joined by one of our very own amazing Fit Father brothers, Michael Wilson. Michael is 42 years young. He's a father of 6 kids, and he's recently just begun a new vocation and a kind of a second career path as a teacher. He's also a softball coach. He's got a lot going on in his life. And Michael shares some powerful stories about how he actually got set up on the Fit Father Project. And like many guys, he saw a picture that was taken of him before he got into shape. And it was a picture that should have been a happy picture, but all he could really see was looking at his body and looking at his belly and just like kind of shocked and disgusted and just not happy with how he looked. And that, along with some other experiences he's going to share in just a moment, prompted him to take his health and fitness so seriously. And I'm personally so grateful that he did, because over the past several months using this program, Michael's now in phase 3 of FF30X. He's dropped over 45 pounds. He's stronger. He's so much more energetic. I mean, as he self-describes, he was a guy that was getting brownies and drinking multiple energy drinks per day just to kind of like function and get through the day. And now with the combination of his exercise, his shakes, this lifestyle, he hasn't an energy drink in like months. And he's just has internal energy, internal motivation and drive. And when Michael shares this stuff, you're going to really feel the power of this. And the underlying principle that I think is so important is that the mind and the body are so intimately connected. When the body is out of shape, the mind ends up feeling more negative, more pessimistic, more depressed. And when the body gets in shape, the mindset starts to come along with it. And if you're in a position like Michael is, a position of leadership in your family, leadership in your job, in the people you're impacting, being your best self is going to translate to more goodness for everyone around. And that's been Michael's experience. And I think you're really going to get a ton of value out of this conversation. And particularly some of the advice Michael shares at the very end about, just some life advice that he has and he lives by is a very strong perspective that I think our brotherhood could take up and live by even more. So Michael, if you're listening to this, which I hope you are, and I know you will at some point, thanks for coming on the podcast again. You're an amazing guy. Blessings to your family and for our entire brotherhood. Let's celebrate another story with Fit Father Michael. All right, Michael, welcome officially to the Fit Father Project podcast, my friend. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Let's kick things off with a little intro. I'd love to, for everyone listening, to know your name, your age, where you're from, and anything you'd like to share about work and your family.
I'm 42 years old. I'm from Newcastle, Oklahoma, which is about, it's sort of in a little bit of, if there is an elbow connecting Oklahoma City and Norman, that's basically where we're at. We're close to each one of those. I'm actually sitting right now in my classroom at Newcastle Middle School.
Cool.
I'm a 7th grade English teacher and I actually am teaching the first year of broadcasting here, which is why I actually have a microphone. But yeah, I'm 42 years old. This is only my second year teaching full time. It's kind of a second career. But I do have, I've been married to my wife, Sarah, since 2003, and we have 6 kids. 3 of them are biological, and 3 of them are adopted. They're all blood. They were 2 nieces and a nephew that they've been with us most of their life. So we're definitely very busy. My wife is also in her very first semester as a full-time teacher after being the middle school secretary for about 5 years. So we've had a lot going on. Definitely in the middle of this whole Fit Father thing, we've had a lot of other balls in the air as well. So
for sure. And I mean, I see a very common theme between you, your wife, and your family is that you really do value bringing up the youth. You value kids. You value family. You value learning and providing a good example. And so I know your physical transformation is probably aligned with that in some way, shape, or form. But take us back. What prompted you to start to look for Fit Father? How'd you find it? And just kind of walk us into how you got acquainted with this program.
Yeah, so definitely it was, I mean, like I put on my stuff, it is about weight, but it's also about how I feel as well. Yeah. I'm a softball coach as well, and actually one of the things that kind of it got me moving the fastest was, or really putting it in my head that I had to finally get back in shape was We actually won a tournament this fall, and we
Cool.
took a picture there. And it should have been like a really cool picture. I should have been really excited about it because I was not only my daughter's on the team, and then also several of the other girls on the team are kids that I've coached back to when they were like 8 years old. So should have been like this really cool picture. And I was looking at this picture, and I was just like, the only thing I could see was my gut sticking out, and I felt stupid that upset me too, because it shouldn't have been. That picture was not about me and shouldn't have been about me,
Yeah.
but it still bothered me, and that kind of started it. And then after that, I was still kind of just saying, hey, we got the summer, we're teachers, it'll be fine, we'll get in the summer, I'll hit it then. And then in December, I went with my daughter's travel ball team to ice skate in downtown Oklahoma City, and we went there, and as we were leaving, we got like just this monsoon. Like it was a downpour. Like it was one of those downpours where you have to like put your face down a little bit to breathe. It was coming down so hard. And so we're running through Oklahoma City, just sprinting, trying to get back to some cover to get to our cars, and it about killed me. I mean, honestly. And it was kind of a wake-up call for me, chasing these girls down the street, trying to keep up with them, because, kind of in the context of my grandfather is, my grandfather's having to regularly have his lungs pumped fluid off his lungs because his heart's getting weak. My mother just had open heart surgery. And so, I mean, my family has good genetics as far as longevity going. Like, I'm 42 years old, and all of my grandparents are still alive. But they're starting to show age, and I have other people in my family, like my father's two brothers have already passed away. So it's not a slam dunk, and it kind of was a wake-up call to me that I had this energy to do something about it after that night, and I was like, I've got to grab it now. I don't need to wait. And that was the biggest thing.
I want to pause you for a second. That's
Yeah.
powerful. Like I got chills, at first just viscerally experiencing what that must have been for you, pounding rain, out of breath, knowing you need to just like keep up, and then just like what that must have felt like a little panic, a little just bad. And then the fact that you also had those things with your parents on top of that, and you're changing careers, and you have all these kids you're taking care of. It's a lot going on. I see you, man. You've been doing this through a pretty intense period of your life. So you start to search. You use that energy that you have from those moments as like a little bit of wake-up call, and you start to search, and then you find us through which ways?
So, I mean, it's kind of full circle to be on the podcast, because I actually kind of I hacked my own brain, basically. I know I'm a big podcast listener, and I know that how much of an impact podcasts have on me. I shared in the Facebook group about how I basically one podcast / YouTube / influence that has been in my life that really helped me in these early years of teaching has been something called Real Rap with Reynolds, and I really think that they are kind of a kindred spirit to what Fit Father does, in that he has YouTube, he has a podcast, and he also has this Facebook group where it's not like all the other Facebook groups that you get into with teachers. There's a lot of griping and moaning in a lot of the teacher Facebook groups, which is, sometimes healthy and sometimes not. But he has this, it's always a very positive place. And so I said, if I can find something like that for fitness that is also really sustainable, because I've done, we've all done the things that were just not sustainable. And I was like, I'm not going to starve myself. I'm not going to do something crazy that I can't sustain with our lifestyle. And I literally just went into my podcatcher and searched Fit Father podcast, because I was just like, let's see. It's like, I'm a dad. Let's see. That'll probably pull that should, it should weed out some of the like just really over the top podcast or bodybuilding podcast.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came up was your podcast, and it was
This is full circle right now. I feel the humility of this moment now.
Yeah, very much so. And so I actually had to, the universe had to kind of give me a nudge, because I was, and to say, hey, don't be you. I'm suspicious of things that show up first on search engines. I tell my kids all the time, don't take the first thing. It's going to be in class
it's an
when we're
ad.
researching. I'm like, don't do that. And the universe was just kind of like, hey, at least read about it. And so I started reading, and everything I read sounded like it was what I was looking for. And so I went to YouTube after that and started watching some videos, and went from there to I went back to episode 1 of the podcast and just started there, and kind of had me convinced that this was something that I needed to do.
That is so cool. I mean, humor me for 1 second, because I put a lot of work into all this, all the videos, all the podcasts, and to know that this caught you at this right time, like, justifies all this effort for me. And like, it's so cool. And so you join the program and you start going through some of the setup steps. I'd like to talk about some of the first 30 days. And I would like you to approach this from what you're implementing, any aha moments, as well as maybe even from a teacher's perspective, the process of the learning and the education structure of the program.
Yeah, and it started for me before I even joined the program officially. Honestly, I'm a teacher, so limited budget. So I have started with free stuff. I started with everything I could get a hold of, and I kind of, it's more like, I didn't have a flannel board with like red string attaching different things, but I kind of had a crazy person like
Yeah.
amalgamation of, from listening to the podcast, from watching YouTube, from everything that I could gather. I put together as much as I could of what phase 1 was, and I was like, I'm just going to try it first. And so
Nice.
for about first 2 weeks, I was on my own version of what I think the plan is, and I was probably batting about 80%. I did okay.
Nice.
I lost 9 pounds the first week, and then I was like, okay. I'm not like, I want to know what's behind the paywall. I want to do this, and and so whenever you guys had a sale at the first of the year,
Yeah.
and so I was like, okay. So I jumped in at that point. And the biggest thing is just like the sustainability piece. It just is something that you can do. That's not, like I said, you don't have to starve yourself. They don't tell you can't have any carbs.
Right.
I tried that one time with, I don't know how committed I was to it, but I figured out very quickly that you need carbs. It was not a sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah, let alone with having kids, right? I mean, it's so tough to do that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I just everything about the way that you lay things out and teach it, about making it sustainable, it all plugs in. And the stuff you say about decision power and not having to make decisions, especially, I mean, as a teacher, that helps me a ton. I don't have to, I know that even if I have a bad day, like as far as like the schedule doesn't go right or whatever happens, I know that like 75% of my food intake is going to be on point, because I know every morning I wake up, I have a shake, have my lunch is packed right after I get out of school. I've got the Quest bar or whatever, and then even if I have a bad dinner, I mean, I got a C for the day, whereas I was getting an F- before,
Right.
And it really was that simple, as just plug. And the one-to-one, like, modular way that things fit together was what made it sustainable, because instead of having an energy drink and a brownie on the way to school, I make my shake. And even though it's kind of a running gag that people make fun of me for my shake at school, because I'm still drinking it by the time first hour's over, and it really grosses out a couple of my coworkers, and they're like, "What are you doing?" But I try to convince them all the time that to me it tastes like a Java chip frappuccino, and it has that texture because of the chia seeds and stuff. And that's what I process it as. I'm like, I get to have a Java chip frappuccino for breakfast every day.
Yeah.
So that's how. So that plugs in there. The lunch is easy. I mean, I was, having a sandwich is perfectly reasonable for lunch. And then, the Quest bar honestly tastes about as good as the brownie, and I didn't have to stop somewhere to get it. So, I mean, all of those things just plugged in right where they were. The biggest change was, for me, that was the toughest was probably not eating at night after dinner.
Yeah.
That was a big part. That's a big part of our family's always been big night snackers, and so that was tough. But because it was obviously working, like I always say, it becomes intrinsically motivating. I don't want to eat at night because I can tell that it's doing me a lot of good, and that's really that's the biggest thing as far as nutrition is it becomes kind of motivating in its own set.
Yeah, very well said.
Yeah.
Oh, how about the exercise? What did that aspect of it look like for you?
So yeah, I actually when I first started the exercise for the Apex, I knew that it takes me at that point. I knew from trying to work out before and getting back in that it takes me about, I don't know, it would take me a little bit over a day to get sore usually. So I did something stupid that I don't advise, but I did an Apex one night and then literally got up the next morning and did another one because I was just like, I'm gonna tell my body we're doing this. So I did that, and it worked out fine. I mean, I was doing the best possible version that I could figure out. At that point, I only had like one kettlebell, and I did the best I could with it. There was a few things I had to tweak once I, was totally in the program and understood, had all the good explanations and education. But I immediately started feeling better. That's one of the craziest things about it. And it was probably a combination of the food and exercise. But I mean, before I was in pain a lot of the times in silly little ways. Like I talked about how a lot of it's not just weight, it's about how I felt. And I started feeling better in very short order. I had my hips used to hurt, my wrists hurt. I couldn't do push-ups. Or I could do them, but I would do push-ups like on my knuckles because my wrists hurt. I had a finger that hurt me for a good year, and all of those things have all healed up and dried up, and none of that. And it was very quickly. Like I was able to do push-ups again inside of a couple weeks, as far as like doing them actually with your wrists the way that they should be. So that those things happened very fast. So that was definitely something. And how fast you come up to speed on the Apex. Probably the hardest thing was figuring out just getting comfortable doing the Renegade rows.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, the strength comes very quickly. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. And I mean, I want to come back to the energy bit for a second, because like that's the background of your entire life, is your perception of how vital you feel and how much you can show up in your capacity that you have, let alone in the job that you're coming into and you're doing, which is effectively, you're performing and you're holding space for education and being present to all of these kids. Like energy is everything. And I know going from having to rely on sugar and energy drinks to actually having a body that's functioning better metabolically because you're doing the right inputs, so you actually have self-starting energy as opposed to this external energy, has got to feel pretty freeing. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure it does.
Oh yeah, definitely. It definitely does. I definitely feel. I feel a good 10 years younger. I'm better. Right now. I'm the weight that I played high school basketball at. I mean, I know that I'm stronger, and I don't feel old anymore. The kids always tell. I'm 42. The kids even before I got into shape, they all think I'm 20 in my 20s for some reason. I don't know why, but anytime they used to say that, I would be like, well, I feel like I'm 60, but I don't say that anymore. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like I can move, and it's good. And that was a big deal to me because like I said, this is my second career. I just finished my alternative certification, and this is something that I wanted to do for a really long time, and I never thought that I would get the opportunity to do it. And life happened, opportunity came up to try to do something else, and I spent 20 years working retail, just kind of making faceless millionaires richer and bleeding and sweating and giving everything I could to that. And I really that was one of the things that bothered me. Was I was like, I'm finally getting to do the thing. I'm finally getting to teach and coach, and I feel terrible, and I don't want to give, I'm only 42. I want to do this for longer than
Yeah.
I did that. I want
Yeah.
to do this for longer than I did that, and I don't want it to be all my leftovers. I want to have good energy for that. So that was a big motivating factor, as well as just, like I said, I've got 6 kids and I want to be there with them.
I want to let you know in this moment, just hearing you say that, like I feel the significance of this like period of your life as a springboard for the future that you've been wanting to create, like vocationally, in your family, just with like actualizing your dreams. And like the timing couldn't be better. I mean, there's never convenient time, right, to like
Right.
to do these things, but you made it a priority enough, and now you have this like foundation that you can build on. What is your family said in this process? What have your kids said? I mean, they've seen you get like probably change their body shape pretty substantially. So what's it been like at home for them witnessing your transformation?
Yeah, I mean, it's slow for them. Obviously, it's even though it's fast, it's 4 months. So, I mean, they haven't made a big deal about it, but they notice, and they know when I'm gonna that I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna go work out, and they've been they understand that sometimes I eat something different, and they're supportive of that. And my wife's been supportive of that, and she's always, she makes the space and the time for me to get up in the morning, and she kind of has to man the fort until I get back. We have kind of a tight schedule in the morning with all of this stuff, but it is, like I said, it's achievable, and that is something that we're able to swing, and it's kind of everybody kind of has to. One person can definitely put it off the rails if they wanted to, because it's a little bit of a tight ship, and they all carry their part of it and participate in it, and I appreciate that, because and it's been and it is also a thing that we're at a time in our life when we're a little bit able to do that. I mean, obviously we've got the 6 kids. They're old enough now. The youngest of them are in 3rd grade. So when they were all younger, this would have been a tougher swing. But they do a good job of getting up and getting themselves around, and nobody's shoving brownies in my face. They respect that. That's a weakness. So it is. I couldn't do it. Definitely couldn't do it without them. And they're pretty active. My daughter was with me at the gym. My oldest daughter, she just got a scholarship or she's basically getting almost a full ride to a college in Vermont. And we were up at the gym. She was up there with me, working out, and we were at the school gym. And she came. She was upstairs. She was upstairs on the treadmills, and I was downstairs in the weight room. And she knocks on the weight room door, crying, I was like, what's going on? And I let her in, and she just shows me her phone, and it was her acceptance to this college. So that was a cool little
Well, congratulations
workout
on
family
that.
moment. Yeah.
I mean, launching her, and obviously to get a scholarship like that requires a tremendous amount of her effort and dedication and diligence along the way, which is very evident. That's a proud dad moment, I'm sure.
Yes, and it's something she went out and did very much so. I mean, she this was the college she wanted to do. She went out and she wrote all the essays, and she really hunted it down.
Nice.
And did it fully on her own. It was not a mom and dad driving this kid crazy thing. It was all her. So
Beautiful.
we're pretty proud of her.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so you're now in phase 2, or maybe you're even just completing phase 2. You're hopping into 3 now. Okay, so you're in phase 3. So what has it been like now, like moving into phase 2? What was that like after you had your foundation, and then now what's it like in phase 3? Take us through a little bit of the progressive nature of what you've been learning, experiencing, what seems more true to you now, what's been challenging.
Yeah, phase 2, obviously the fast is a thing that comes up. I'm on my fast day today. I do it on Friday. We don't have school on Fridays, obviously. I'm not doing this in front of all my kids. But we do have school one Friday a month, but we don't usually have school on Fridays. So I make that my fast day. So Thursday nights usually are, if I'm gonna have free meal, that's the free meal, because that's our last night.
Yeah, that's cool.
Working. so I kind of run Saturday through Friday as the routine. But so that, I mean, honestly, because of being on schedule, and putting it on that day, planning it to be on that day, I usually have grading and things to do. We have things around the house to do on Friday, so it's just, I mean, I hardly notice, honestly. I start getting hungry about snack time and kind of have to push through that, but it definitely is. It definitely helps. I mean, it gets you off of the plateau if you're plateauing. I actually don't usually show it that much on the scale till a couple days later. I'm not sure what that's all about, but it usually takes a day or two of lag before I drop another little bit on that. But it's definitely a valuable part of it, and it's not as scary as it sounds when you first hear about it, for sure. And I'm kind of like, I don't remember who it was on the podcast that I heard recently, and you were surprised to hear. I remember you expressed surprise, but I actually like Double Trouble. I don't know why. I mean, it almost killed me the first time I did it because I think I tried too much weight. But Shane Dixon was the guy who was like, no, just chill out, take some of the weight off, and it'll be fine. And once I did that, I don't know what it is about that exercise. I just really feel good after it. I feel like I just feel better the whole day after doing that.
Nice.
I would not say the same thing in phase 3 about the Destroyer.
Oh yeah.
I get through it. I was proud of myself for the Destroyer. It was very, but it's definitely less of a excitement thing. But it definitely does work. I mean, the good news is if you need something happy about the Great Destroyer, it doesn't take as long.
Yeah.
So it is. But it definitely made me. That definitely did make me stronger. But as far as phase 2, Double Trouble, I really liked it. And the fasting definitely helps. And you really feel a lot of like momentum in phase 2. You feel good.
Yeah.
You're really starting to see like your body change, and starting to be able to tell. And then with phase 3, I'm the carb cycling. I'm trying to figure out exactly. I'm trying to decide if I'm doing it 1 day or 2 days, because I'm just like, I'm trying to stretch this thing, honestly, because I'm at my goal. I could still lose some more weight, but I'm really at my goal weight. But I really want to finish the programs as far as through all the workouts.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out which levers to pull and which levers to not pull.
Yeah. And I don't want to give you an answer because I know you're going to figure it out because you're like equipped enough at this point, which is probably which is really cool. And I do think you're going to like phase 4 when you get into that. Yeah. And I won't really reveal too much about it unless you already kind of looked ahead and but it's kind of like the synthesis aspect that allows you to like just kind of cruise more after this. But hey, you have peak 11 ahead of you too on phase 3. You got some workouts coming down the pipeline, my friend.
Oh yeah, I've looked ahead through all of it, trying to figure out which way I'm going with stuff, and I'm just, yes, I'm there. The other phase 3 workouts look like a lot of fun.
We'll use the word expansive, They help you dig deep. Yes.
I'm on right now. I've done 4 assaults. So,
nice.
And that is, I'm trying to figure that out. I've always been kind of limited with, if I work out at home, I've only got a few dumbbells. But if I work out at my school, I have a lot of dumbbells, but they're the big round rubber ones, so they're not super ideal for some of the things that we do.
For sure.
But I've figured out a little bit of a setup for the assault that I'm using right now. I probably need to up the weights a little bit next time, because I'm getting it done a little bit faster than it's probably intended. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I definitely feel like a completely different person, for sure.
That's awesome. So good to hear. All right, so I want to ask you now, in the kind of closing part of this interview, some advice that you have for some guys who are starting out in the very early phases, even maybe someone who is very much like you, very conscious of budget, a little skeptical, want to try things out. What would you say to that guy, whether he's just joined or is even considering joining, just this early phase mentality based on what you've experienced?
Yeah, I would say if you are listening to this podcast, then you probably have at least enough of the motivation to get started on this. And if you're listening to this podcast and you hunted it down in the way that I did, then you're looking and you have something in your gut telling you need to do something. And if you'll seize that and do this program, then it'll become motivating in its own self. It's not, you won't have to keep yourself motivated. The results come quick enough that the motivation will come as well. And it does work, and it doesn't take forever to start feeling it. Especially, I mean, the worse off you are as far as like where you're starting, the more, I lost 9 pounds the first week. I've seen guys on the Facebook group who've dropped more than that the first week. I was 188 pounds, 5'5", so I was definitely overweight, but people start, even bigger than that, and a lot of times those people really supercharge and really drop a lot fast, and so the motivation is going to be there if you just commit to it and like I said, if you want to be a crazy person like me, then and put together the manifesto version of what you think that we're talking about here, then it'll start showing results fast enough that you'll want to jump all the way in pretty quickly. As far as advice, like I look at this as one of the books that I read. There's a guy named Mark Manson wrote a book, and it was something, and it basically my paraphrase of what he says is that happiness is choosing good problems, and that's do you want the problems that have you looking for this podcast, or do you want the problems of getting up a little bit early and doing some workouts? And I mean, these are much better problems. They just really are. I can't even compare. So
that's a beautiful perspective. And also to say too, I'm sure you'd agree with this, that the energy and vitality that you do experience when your body is being tended to properly, when you are pushing it physically, nourishing it properly, and even just you feel aligned, like your capacity to tackle problems goes up. Like there's some stuff that might have rocked you in the past that now becomes small comparatively, but I do love the idea too that, and I wrote it down actually because I thought it was so striking. You wrote this in the podcast intake, is troubles never cease. Happiness is in choosing the troubles you want to have.
Right.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, Michael. I love that. So I want to ask you in closing, what does it mean to you now to be a fit father? You type fit father into that little podcast bar. What does that phrase and that concept mean to you?
I think it means being able to give your all and your energy to the things that you want to give them to, and being able to give your best energy and your best efforts and your best, and to enjoy it, to not have it be a drag, to feel like you're living life instead of just being drugged through it or existing through it. I really think that is what it's all about. Like it's just a different quality of life. It really is.
Man, Michael, thanks for coming on. Like you're walking the walk through and through. You're just such a wonderful guy. And now that I have these images in my mind of like you from those striking early moments of like being out of breath, running through, to now like crushing the assaults and beginning this new life and career. I just want to say blessings to you on the road ahead, all the miles behind as well, to your family, to all the kids that you serve locally. Like, I'm so grateful you're a part of our community, and I know a lot of guys are going to find a ton of inspiration from this.
Well, thank you. And thank you guys for everything that you're doing.
Thanks, Michael.